Welcome back to part 2 of this powerful story about friendship, betrayal, and dangerous desire. Titled The Friend Who Wanted His Best Friend's Wife. If you're new here, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss any part of this story. Now, let's continue. After that night, Obi could not rest. He lay awake, staring into nothing. Sleep refused to come. Every time he closed his eyes, Tina appeared. Her face stayed in his mind. Her voice replayed in his head. Her smile felt closer than it should. It was not just memory. It felt personal. Too personal. He turned on his side. He tried to distract himself with his phone. He tried to think about business. He tried to focus on work plans with Ike. But somehow, everything led back to her. He sat up. "This is wrong," he whispered to himself. He reminded himself that Ike was his friend. Not just a friend. A brother. They had built dreams together. Shared secrets. Trusted each other with money, family, and life decisions. Tina was not just a woman. She was Ike's wife. The line was clear. But desire does not listen to reason. It started as a thought. A small thought. One he could have crushed easily. What if? That was how it began. A simple question. A dangerous one. He tried to kill it. He told himself to stop imagining. He told himself to respect boundaries. He told himself that loyalty mattered. But the more he tried to silence the thought, the louder it became. He began to replay moments. Conversations. Smiles. Eye contact that probably meant nothing. But in his mind, it meant something. And that was the problem. The thought stopped feeling wrong. It started feeling possible. Soon, Obi stopped fighting it. He stopped correcting himself. He stopped feeling guilty for a few seconds at a time. Then those seconds became minutes. And when a man stops fighting a wrong thought, he begins to protect it. He no longer asked, "Why am I thinking this?" He began asking, "What if this could work?" That was the moment everything changed. Because once a man protects a bad idea, he slowly starts building a plan around it. And Obi had just taken the first step. After the thought settled in Obi's mind, his behavior began to change. Not suddenly. Not in a way anyone would notice. He simply started showing up more. He visited Ike more often than before. Sometimes with no clear reason. Sometimes just to check in. Ike welcomed him warmly. To Ike, nothing had changed. But to Obi, everything had. The thought he once tried to fight was now something he protected. And protecting it meant getting closer. Closer to Ike's life. Closer to Ike's home. Closer to Tina. Obi began asking questions. How is business? Any new competitors? Are your accounts secure? Who handles approvals when you're not around? At first, Ike answered casually. Obi nodded like a loyal friend. Then he leaned into concern. "You know success attracts enemies," Obi said one evening. "Powerful men fall because they trust too easily. Sometimes the danger is not outside. It's close." Ike laughed. "Not in my house," Ike said. "Not with Tina." The confidence in Ike's voice was strong. It was the voice of a man who believed in his marriage and his friendship. Obi smiled. But the smile meant something different now. Obi did not argue with Ike's confidence. Instead, he supported it. "That's good," he said. "But still, be careful. You carry too much alone." He suggested small changes. "Let me help with approvals. Let me manage some transactions. Let me monitor unusual activity. For your protection," he said calmly. It sounded reasonable. After all, they were partners. Ike saw no threat. Only loyalty. So he agreed. More access was granted. More control handed over. More trust placed in Obi's hands. And that is how betrayal often begins. Not with force. Not with shouting. But with permission. What Ike didn't know was that every agreement was another brick in a trap, already forming around him. And Obi, the friend who once struggled with a thought, was now quietly building a plan. The kind of plan that does not fail by accident. The kind that waits. And watches. After gaining more access to Ike's business, Obi felt closer to everything Ike owned. The company. The trust. The house. The marriage. The thought he once struggled with was no longer just a thought. It was now an intention. And intentions always look for action. One afternoon, Obi sent Tina a message. "Hope you good. Ike mentioned something about tomorrow's meeting. Just checking if he left already." It was normal. Safe. Harmless. Tina replied politely. "Yes, he left. Thank you. Let me know if you need anything." She responded out of respect. Obi was her husband's closest friend. There was no reason to suspect anything. At first, the messages stayed simple. Business updates. Small talk. Occasional greetings. To Tina, it meant nothing. To Obi, it meant access. And once a person with the wrong intention gains access, boundaries slowly start to shift. She never crossed a line. But Obi slowly did. The messages changed. They started coming late. "You look nice today. Ike is lucky. You deserve more appreciation." Tina felt uncomfortable. The tone was different. She began replying less. Short answers. Delayed responses. She tried to ignore it. Maybe he did not mean it that way. Maybe she was overthinking. But then the messages became more personal. Private jokes. Statements that hinted at hidden feelings. She decided to be clear. "Respect my marriage." That was the first warning. Obi replied with an apology. He blamed stress. He said she misunderstood. For a short time, he stopped. Then it began again. Stronger. "You don't look happy sometimes. I can see things I cannot." That was the second warning. "Don't text me like this again." This time, there was no softness in her words. Obi apologized again. But inside, something changed. He did not feel shame. He felt rejection. And rejection can turn desire into resentment. The door he wanted was not opening. So he began to think differently. If he could not have Tina's attention, he could break the peace she shared with Ike. When desire failed, he chose destruction. And this time, his plan would not depend on messages. It would depend on damage. After Tina's second warning, Obi stopped texting. Not because he had changed, but because he had decided on something worse. Rejection hurt his pride. And pride can push a person to dangerous choices. He already had access to Ike's business systems. He already knew passwords, approvals, and backup files. Trust had given him more than friendship. It had given him opportunity. One night, Ike was called out for an urgent meeting. Obi was present when the call came. He offered to stay back and handle things. Ike agreed without hesitation. That was the moment Obi had been waiting for. He moved carefully. He accessed Ike's laptop. He connected external storage. He copied data. From old family group chats, he downloaded Tina's voice notes. Simple messages. Birthday wishes. Casual greetings. He cut them. He rearranged them. He edited tone and timing. Then he created fake chats. Messages that never existed. Replies Tina never sent. Words Ike would never imagine from her. He also inserted images. Nothing obvious. Just angles. Just closeness. Just enough to create suspicion. And he did not work alone. There was someone else. A person skilled with editing software. Someone Ike trusted in the company. Someone no one suspected. By morning, everything was ready. Clean. Convincing. And dangerous. Days later, Ike received the files. Anonymous sender. No explanation. Just proof. Pictures. Voice notes. Chat screenshots. Ike stared at the screen. At first, he thought it was a joke. Then he played the audio. It sounded like Tina. His breathing changed. His mind raced. He checked the timestamps. The formatting. The details. Everything matched. The proof looked perfect. And perfection is what made it terrifying. Because when something looks too clean, it leaves no room for doubt. But perfection can be a lie. None of it was true. Yet it was strong enough to break trust. And once trust is shaken, even truth struggles to stand. Ike did not know who sent it. He did not know how it was created. But somewhere else. Obi waited. Not nervously, but confidently, believing the trap had finally closed. After receiving the files, Ike did not react immediately. He replayed the voice notes again. He zoomed into the pictures. He reread the chats. Each time, the details looked consistent. That was what hurt the most. If it had looked careless, he would have dismissed it. If it had looked fake, he would have laughed. But it looked real. And when something looks real, it begins to feel real. Ike called Tina. His voice was steady. Too steady. "I need to show you something," he said. Tina sensed something was wrong. When Ike placed the phone in her hands and played the audio, she froze. The sound of her own voice filled the room. But the words were wrong. The timing was wrong. The meaning was twisted. Her eyes filled with tears. "This is not true," she said immediately. "I never said this like that. I never sent those messages." Ike did not shout. He did not insult her. That almost made it worse. He just watched her. Waiting. Hoping she would explain something he did not understand. She begged him to check properly. She begged him to look deeper. She begged him to remember who she was. But doubt had already entered Ike's heart. And doubt does not leave easily. It stays. It questions. It replays memories. It changes how you see someone. For the first time, Ike looked at Tina and felt unsure. Not angry. Unsure. After that night, something shifted. Ike spoke less. He answered with short words. He avoided long conversations. Tina felt the distance. She tried to act normal. She tried to cook, to smile, to talk about simple things. But something invisible stood between them. They slept in the same house. But trust was no longer present. And when trust leaves a marriage, even silence becomes loud. Tina cried alone. Not because she was guilty, but because she felt helpless. How do you prove something that never happened? Meanwhile, Obi watched from a distance. He noticed Ike's quiet behavior. He noticed Tina's red eyes. He offered advice. He acted concerned. He pretended not to know anything. The trap was working. Or so he thought. Because sometimes, when damage looks complete, it is only the beginning of exposure. After the confrontation, the silence in Ike's home had not settled when something else happened. Ike received a formal call from the Financial Crime Unit. His company accounts were under investigation. At first, he thought it was routine. Successful businesses are often audited. He had nothing to hide. But the tone of the officer was serious. "There are discrepancies," the voice said. "Large transfers. Unapproved movements." Ike's heart tightened. Large sums were missing. Not small errors. Not accounting mistakes. Millions. Transactions were traced to his access. Approvals carried his digital signature. Security logs showed his login credentials at the exact time the transfers were made. Everything pointed at him. It was clean. Organized. Documented. The kind of evidence that does not look accidental. Ike sat still as the details were explained. He knew one thing clearly. He did not move that money. He remembered every major approval. He remembered every transaction he personally signed. This was not oversight. This was planning. And suddenly, something connected in his mind. The fake evidence against Tina. The doubt planted in his home. The new access he had granted someone in the name of trust. But he had no proof. And suspicion without proof is weakness. Within days, Ike was officially summoned. He walked into the station believing he would clear things up. Instead, he was detained. The news spread quickly. Business partners called. Employees whispered. Friends asked questions. Tina felt the world closing in. She had just fought to defend her name. Now her husband was being called a fraud. Obi arrived at the station almost immediately. He looked shocked. He looked worried. He placed his hand on Tina's shoulder. "This will be sorted," he said calmly. He spoke to lawyers. He made calls. He acted like a brother fighting for justice. No one questioned him. Why would they? He was the loyal friend. Inside, he was smiling. The marriage was weak. The business was broken. The friend was in chains. The trap was complete. Or so he believed. Because sometimes, when a man thinks he has won, he forgets one thing. Every trap leaves fingerprints. And fingerprints do not disappear forever. After Ike's arrest everything felt unstable. The house was quiet. Phones kept ringing. People kept asking questions. Tina answered very little. Then Obi came. He did not wait long. He walked in like family. "I'm here for you," he said softly. He offered help. He offered money for legal fees. He offered protection from gossip. He spoke like someone carrying the burden of a friend's pain. To anyone watching, he looked loyal. Tina listened quietly. She did not interrupt. She did not cry in front of him. She simply watched his face. There was something different. Not sadness. Not worry. Control. As if he already knew how everything would end. Then Obi leaned closer and said the words. "Now you are free." The sentence was short. But it was heavy. Free? Free from what? From her husband? From the accusations? From the marriage? Those 4 words changed everything. They did not comfort her. They exposed him. Tina stepped back slowly. In that moment, fear did not grow. Clarity did. She replayed the past weeks in her mind. The strange advice Obi gave Ike about enemies. The extra access he requested in the company. The late-night messages. The fake evidence. The sudden financial crisis. Only one person had access to both her marriage and Ike's business. Only one person was close enough to damage both. Only one person stood to gain from Ike's fall. And only one person smiled too calmly while everything collapsed. She looked at Obi differently now. Not as a family friend. But as a suspect. "The truth always comes out," she said quietly. Obi paused. For a second, his confidence shifted. It was small. But it was there. Because Tina was no longer reacting. She was analyzing. She was connecting pieces. And that is what made the moment dangerous. The man who framed her husband was standing in front of her. And for the first time, Obi realized something. Tina was no longer afraid. She was thinking. And a thinking mind can destroy a perfect trap. After Tina realized that Obi's words did not match his actions, her mind refused to rest. She remembered something clearly. Weeks ago, Obi had asked Ike strange questions about account access. He had offered to help with company security. He had insisted on handling certain approvals. At that time, it sounded responsible. Like a friend protecting another friend. Now, it sounded strategic. She replayed the conversation from earlier that day. "You always stand by Ike," she had said calmly. "You would never hurt him." Obi stepped closer. "I stand by you now," he replied. That was the second mistake. He had chosen a side too early. In moments of real loyalty, you defend truth. You do not switch positions. And Tina noticed. For the first time, Obi felt something unexpected. Not fear. But uncertainty. Because Tina was no longer reacting with emotion. She was watching his expressions. Listening to his tone. Measuring his confidence. And a woman who observes is already planning. That night, Tina did something quiet. She made a call. Not to a friend. Not to family. Not to anyone who would panic. She called someone Obi did not know about. A former staff member Ike once helped when he was struggling. A quiet tech expert. A man who owed Ike loyalty. She explained everything carefully. The fake pictures. The edited voice notes. The sudden financial investigation. Obi's behavior. The tech expert listened without interrupting. Then he asked one simple question. Who had full access? Only 2 names came up. Ike. And Obi. The expert requested copies of the files. Within hours, he found something small. Very small. A digital trace hidden inside the metadata. The fake files had been edited on a device. Linked to Obi's private cloud account. Obi had cleaned most of it. He had erased timestamps. He had changed formats. He had masked file origins. But he missed one connection. One backup sync. One cloud record. He had been careful. Just not careful enough. And that small mistake was about to turn the trap against him. After the digital trace was discovered, Tina did not waste time. The next day, she visited Ike. He looked tired. Not just from the cell. But from betrayal. From doubt. From being accused of something he did not do. Yet his eyes were still strong. When Tina walked in, he searched her face. Not for pity. For truth. She held his hand firmly. "I believe you," she said. For the first time since the accusation, Ike breathed fully. Not because the case was solved, but because the one person he feared losing still stood beside him. Then she told him everything. About Obi's strange advice. About the late-night messages. About the calm smile. About the words, "Now you are free." About the access he requested in the company. And most importantly, about the digital trace. Ike listened without interrupting. When she finished, he closed his eyes. Not in pain. In realization. Pieces connected. The extra permissions. The sudden financial transfers. The fake evidence. The perfect timing. The friend he trusted with his life had built the trap around him. And Ike had handed him the tools. But now, the trap had a weakness. And that weakness was proof. For the first time since his arrest, hope felt real. Outside the station, Obi stood confidently. He believed everything was still under control. Then his phone vibrated. Unknown number. One sentence. "We found the edit history." His smile disappeared instantly. He read it again. His hands felt cold. He tried calling Tina. No answer. He tried calling the bank contact he had bribed to flag Ike's account. No answer. He rushed to his laptop. He began deleting files. Clearing folders. Removing backups. Too late. Because somewhere else, a full report was already being prepared. Digital records recovered. Cloud logs confirmed. Transfer routes traced. This time, the evidence was real. And this time, it was pointing at him. The hunter had become the target. And the trap was closing in reverse. Obi did not get the chance to explain himself properly. He did not get the chance to act. For the first time, there was no script prepared. He sat quietly as the officers spoke. Each sentence felt heavier than the last. Fraud. Manipulation. Diversion of funds. Digital fabrication. Words he once planned carefully were now being used against him. He tried to defend himself. It was pressure. It was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to go this far. But betrayal always goes far. It never stays small. The evidence spoke louder than he could. Bank logs did not lie. Cloud history did not forget. Edit traces did not disappear. The trap he built had turned into a cage. And this time, there was no one to rescue him. When the handcuffs clicked, something inside Obi broke. Not pride. Not anger. But control. He realized something too late. He had destroyed the only friendship that ever stood by him. And for what? Desire. Greed. Ego. Inside the station, the mood had changed for Ike. The same officers who once looked at him with suspicion now spoke with respect. The tech report was clear. The financial trail was traced back to Obi. The digital edits were verified. Charges were withdrawn. Ike's name was cleared. No celebration. No shouting. Just a correction. Sometimes justice is quiet. When Ike stepped outside, Tina was there. They looked at each other for a long moment. Not perfect. Not untouched. But united. Trust had been shaken. There were nights of doubt. Moments of silence. Painful conversations. But their foundation survived. Because betrayal did not come from inside their marriage. It came from outside it. From someone they trusted. Obi sat in the same cell Ike once occupied. Alone. The silence he once caused now surrounded him. He replayed his choices. The first thought. The first lie. The first manipulation. He could trace everything back to that moment when he stopped fighting a wrong thought. And now he understood. Small thoughts can grow into big destruction. Ike returned to his company slowly. He reviewed systems. He limited access. He rebuilt carefully. But more than business, he rebuilt wisdom. He became more careful about who he calls brother. More careful about who he gives power. More careful about who sits at his table. Tina stood beside him. Not as a suspect. But as strength. She had chosen patience over panic. Observation over reaction. Truth over emotion. In the end, betrayal was exposed. Fraud was punished. And the man who survived the fall was the one who never betrayed. Ike. Desire without control leads to destruction. Greed without limits leads to loss. And trust, once broken, never returns the same. Choose loyalty. Guard your thoughts. And remember, the most dangerous enemies are not strangers. They are the ones you never think to question. And justice may be slow, but it does not forget. If this story taught you something, moved you, or kept you on the edge of your seat, don't just watch and leave. Go ahead and like this video, subscribe to my channel, and turn on your notification bell so you never miss the next powerful story. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this message. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Ike did the right thing? What would you have done in Tina's position? Until the next story, stay wise, stay alert, and protect your circle. Thanks for watching.